Good evening, everybody. How you doing? Thank you for coming out. I'm Nathan. This is a Georgia Shooting Connection Friday live stream. We got a couple more people that are going to be joining us hopefully here shortly, but right now it's just the usual suspects. So I'm here to say hi, and then we've got Jamie and Kyle. Live stream.
Hey, y'all. Happy Friday, everybody. I want to take a second to be mindful of the folks up in North and South Carolina. We've got some members of our community that's in harm's way kind of tonight as the storms are pounding the coast. We've got Pop's Quest up there. Elvis Ammo lives in that area. I shouldn't name any names because I'll forget somebody important, but there's a lot of folks that we know that are up there where those hurricanes are coming in. So y'all remember them in your prayers tonight.
Yes, sir. That has been I've been watching it with some serious interest, pretty much so all week long. I was afraid it was going to take a turn north and affect my family, but boy, that is a wet mess.
That's the bad thing is we thought it was going to come on the coast, with a vengeance and be maybe a Category 5. It stayed a Category 4, and then it got over there once it got off the continental shelf and into that shallower water. It chilled out a little bit, so I think it hit at a Category 2 or a 1.
Yeah, I think. Well, it depends on how you look at it because it sat there and got right up close to the shore, and then just kind of hung out. And I think it
sat there and just made it rain. But
yeah, I think it finally hit like the eye or whatever hit today sometime, and I think it was at a Category 2.
Yeah, it was. I'm thankful that it downgraded for what it did, and. I'm sorry. There's a lot of water. They got a huge storm surge and all that. But I'm sorry. I've got people visiting and that are inconsiderate. The storm surge was pretty rough. But the thing is, it's moving so slow now that it's going to just rain and rain and rain and rain and rain and rain.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for those people. I would, you know what? Put some in a jar and mail it to me. I'll put it on my yard.
Yeah, that's some serious flooding that they're looking at getting for sure.
Behind the back seat or behind the driver's seat.
Yeah, I'm like I said, prayers and stuff going out to everybody.
There's Chico. What's up, brother?
Serious flooding that they're looking at getting.
Hey guys, how's everyone doing? Turn my phone down.
Doing well. Glad to have you.
Glad to be here.
Figured it out with the emails, man. I had the wrong email, and then I sent you in one way, and then I hopefully got it figured out.
Yeah, no problem, man. That's my crazy channel name. The autocorrect corrects it.
See, it didn't with me, but what it did is it auto-populated your email address with your your image and stuff like that, and I clicked on that, and when I do that, for some reason, sometimes it doesn't come through. So then I had to just anyway.
Okay, cool, bro.
Yeah,
glad to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, of course. You're part of the team.
Thanks, bro.
This is a team. We're all bunting. We're just hoping this works out.
Right.
No real game plan at all. But we got a lot of folks that have already out here. We got Cranky Cletus out in the chat, Uncle Jim, Crazy Scotsman, of course. Brother, I always appreciate it. You coming in here. I know you got to be a busy man. Eddie B out here in force, another one of our Georgia folks. We're going to have to get you on here eventually. Ozark Spirit, glad to see you, brother. Willie Bullet Man, I hope everything's going all right. Uncle Jim with the hammers. Who else we got here?
Miss Kitty just showed up.
Oh, yeah. All right, Vanessa. Appreciate it. Chico, of course. Yeah, guys, I'm always going to – oh, Fuzzy was on here a little bit. I haven't seen from a couple seconds, but Fuzz 48 was out here, folks. I appreciate everybody coming out. It does my heart good. What's that?
There's Ozark.
Yep. You guys, I appreciate everybody coming out. It's we don't have a hell of a lot of plans going for tonight. It's going to be kind of another one of those freewheeling ordeals, but we might develop something as time goes on. I think everybody's been pretty busy with work and different stuff coming up, but gun-loving Grandpa Stanley, thanks for coming. So I'm certainly glad that everybody showed up, and
there's egg rolls too.
And there's egg rolls too. So keep that in mind, all you viewers. We have egg rolls. So MCK coming in. But you know, I've guys, I would like to say just, you know, we've talked about the first thing on the agenda, and probably we're going to talk about that storm quite a bit more. But I wanted to say I apologize to everybody for not having any content out. It has been my supervisor retired a couple months ago, and we got a new person in that I'm going to be reporting to, and we've done a lot of reorganization late this summer, and I've just been so doggone busy that I haven't really had a lot of time. And then even when I do have time, I'm just drained to the point to where I don't feel like that, like going out and doing stuff. So I do apologize for not getting videos out. As the fall starts to roll in, the temperatures cool down. I get into this, get into the flow of what's going on at work. I'll have some videos up. So I appreciate everybody hanging with me. I'm still getting new subscribers, which amazes me because I'm not getting many videos, but I do appreciate it, everybody. So thank you.
If I may be so bold, there's a couple of guys in the chat room that I want to welcome that I haven't seen before. Julian Vickers, have y'all seen him before?
He's a friend from work, actually.
Welcome home, Julian.
Yeah, I appreciate him coming out. Hey, there you go.
And gun-loving Grandpa Stanley. I think I've seen him a couple of times. Mm-hmm. So I want to especially welcome those two. And I know we don't really have a topic set tonight, but something I want to get y'all's opinion on is I seen a video this past week. It left me confused. And I don't remember who it was I was watching. I only watch one or two in a week's time, But primers.
Gun-loving Grandpa, do they call you Worm? I told a co-worker of mine tonight that we were having a live chat. He's a fellow reloader and loves the exercise or whatever you would call it. And he said he might drop by. Is gun-loading or gun-toting Grandpa Worm?
So what were you saying, Jamie? I'm sorry. You had something you wanted to run by us?
Primers. If we can talk about that a little bit tonight, especially with Mr. Chico and
yep. Definitely. You said primers, right?
Primers, yes, sir.
Yes.
The catalyst of our loads, really. I mean, that's where it starts. And what?
So that's a banging topic.
Yes. The two that I seem to settle with the most is the Winchester and the CCIs. And I know most of the guys out there all rant and rave about the CCI primers. But if I ever have any rounds of my loads that don't go off, it's generally the CCIs, and I don't know why.
Because the cup's harder?
Because their cup's harder. Mm-hmm. Therefore, it takes a harder primer strike to ignite them.
Yep.
Okay. And with my Marlin 336, I'm also aware that is a two-piece firing pin inside that bolt. And I'm thinking of stripping that bolt and cleaning that out real, real good and checking it, make sure I don't have any flares or anything like that. But I do remember the video I was referring to, and I really like the Winchesters. Winchesters seem like they're hotter. but there's a particular term, and I can't remember it. I should have looked it up, but doing some show prep before we got started tonight. But there's a particular term that refers to the, I guess would it be the amount it takes to set it off, and I can't remember, or the heat that it produces, or the amount of fire that it produces. Does anybody know that term?
Well, there's going to be some term dealing with joules or energy that the primer is going to give off. Here's the thing I'll say about Winchesters is the Winchesters, if you notice, Winchesters are considered both a standard and a Magnum primer at the same time, which is impossible, but they do seem to be rated as such. So you'll see in reloading manuals an H110 load for 357 or something that's using a Winchester primer, and it's for both standard and Magnum. I don't exactly understand because there's going to be a certain amount of force that primer is going to give off, and it's either of the Magnum sort or the standard sort. If they split the difference, then it's neither. You can't be both. But Winchester touts as it is, so that you're right. They're going to be hotter primers.
Well, that brings me to another point. Grab a book right here. Y'all are wondering, I'm in the process of consolidating all of this reloading stuff. Okay, let's just go with 9mm Luger. Everybody's familiar with 9mm. This is the Lyman 50th. When we start looking at our data, it gives us a list of test components. So if we're using this one in particular is federal cases, primers or CCI 500s. So when we go by the charge, the trim to length, the bullet weight, the bullet that's exactly listed in there, when we do all of those steps, we should get a result fairly close to the velocities that are listed in the book. But if we change one of those components, that changes everything that we're reading in our manuals. Am I correct?
Well, I mean, the official answer is that whenever you change any component in a recipe, you should reduce by 10 and then work your load back up. Unless, of course, you're dealing with certain powders, for instance, H110, you might be able to get away with a 10% reduction, but you need to be careful because there's that low pressure volatility thing with 110 and a couple other powders. But you should be really close. I mean, if you're changing between like a Remington primer and a Federal primer or a CCI primer or whatever, as long as they're standard primers, you should really see about the same. Now, the one area of a reload manual that'll catch you is if they're using a test barrel versus, right, whatever. And sometimes that'll test you. But if you're, like you said, if all things being equal and you change one item, if it's a primer, it shouldn't make that much of a difference, or even a case. Because you got to remember, there's different case capacities. So if they're using Winchester brass and you're using Federal brass, you're going to have a difference, but it's probably not going to be a major difference. But the technical answer is the 10% reduction.
My thinking. For this particular example, though, this is rifle data for 9mm carbines, and they use the Ruger PC9 carbine, 16 1/4 inch barrel with a 1 inch groove diameter of 0.354. So when we're working up loads and we're looking at the data and these test components, and we're looking at those velocities, I don't think we should be that alarmed if we're not getting the exact numbers if we're doing something different. because the bit, like you said, Nathan, I think the biggest difference that we're going to see in our reloads is barrel length that we're using in our firearms, because everybody's got different firearms and they've got different barrel lengths. So that's just something I wanted to get off my chest, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's a interesting point, especially for relatively new reloaders. Is they get a manual and they expect things to be as the manual says. So if the manual says this is going to shoot at this load is going to shoot it at 2,200 feet. Well, maybe not. You know, depending on a lot of different things. For instance, when you're talking about rifles, just having a deep chamber could make a pretty large impact in your velocities, because you might get bullet jump, which, you know, jumps up out of the case, and then that's going to lower your pressures down, and then you have more time before engagement into rifling, and depending on the rifling depth and the cut of it, you're going to have so there's going to be minute differences that should lead to a certain window.
Well,
but you shouldn't be too far out of that. You know what I mean? Like if you're supposed to get 2,200 feet and you're using the same bullet weight and everything else and type of bullet, and you're coming in at 3, it's like something's wrong. You know?
There's a lot of factors that affect that. One of them is rifle temperature. One of them is ammunition temperature. Some people say that humidity plays an effect in that. You're not really looking at humidity because we're not launching
pumpkins.
Right. 3.5 miles away. Yeah, that's when humidity comes into play. For your normal, I would say 1,000 to 1,800 meter shots, humidity doesn't even come into play. Temperature comes into play a lot. Temperature of the bore, temperature of the receiver, temperature of the ammunition. You know, I mean, there's all kinds of things that can make you change your point of impact from day to day. But I mean, if you're only shooting 100 yards, it should work.
Well, altitude has a big deal with not only, you know, bullet flight, but also speed, because there's this. It's when you're talking about speeds, just looking at speeds, it's amazing that we get as consistent results as we get through a chronograph, because there'll be so many different things. And like Kyle said, temperature. If you shoot 5 through a chronograph with a rifle, you shot 2 too many, because those last 2 are too hot to get an understanding of what that rifle is going to do. Because the bore temperature is too hot, the chamber's temperature is too hot. And if the chamber's temperature is too hot, then the case is going to get some of that because there's going to be heat transfer. It is amazing how much there is difference. And primers, to me, make a difference and there's certain specific circumstances in which primers can make a huge difference. Vanessa asked about how many different types of primers there are. And honestly, ma'am, I don't know. Like, I'd have to go back and count everybody's product, because there are a lot of different primers, especially if you're dealing with shotguns and stuff. I have no idea.
Basically 2 sizes. You got large and small, rifle and pistol.
Well, there's large and small rifle and pistol, Magnum, standard. Then there's like the 223 primers. There's
military stuff.
And then if you get into the shotguns, that's a whole different, you know, there's a whole different thing of primers. I really don't know what all is out there. Now, I stick mainly to, you know, small and large, like Jamie said, small and large rifle and handguns. But that's because I don't shoot a hell of a lot of shotgun.
Well, I certainly don't load for shotgun.
I'm probably going to eventually. I just don't know when.
But with her thinking about getting into reloading, what she needs to be aware of is small pistol, large pistol, small rifle, large rifle, and then magnums of all 4 sizes.
Yeah, and don't use a magnum primer unless the load specifically calls for it.
Exactly. Chico, you awful quiet, brother. What's on your heart, man?
Oh, I'm just listening. You know, I had a question. I was gonna say that about the altitude. I was reading somewhere. I've got a few family members in like Colorado, and it prompted me to read about the altitude and reload. And so I'm glad Nathan said that the altitude could have a change. I wasn't gonna mention it because most of us are in the South, you know, but I figured it may be somebody, hopefully somebody out there listening further than the South out there. So but yeah, the Magnum primers, I was gonna ask about that. Jamie, you load for a 3, don't you?
You broke up there, man. Say that again.
Oh, I'm sorry. Don't you load for 357 sometimes?
Yes, sir.
So you don't use Magnum primers?
Yes, I do, but I don't have to all the time. It depends on
Got you,
how
got
hot
you.
I'm running them.
Okay. Yeah,
The
cool.
that's Vanessa brought that up. She's going to be loading for 357 and 44. That is a common
Okay.
misconception that if you're loading for 357, 44, anything that has Magnum in the title, you have to use a Magnum primer. With reloading, most of the time, that's not the case. You don't use a Magnum primer. You use a standard. Even if you're loading hot, like if you load a hot 357 load with unique, don't use a Magnum primer.
Okay.
Because the Magnum primer is only necessary for lighting powder that is dense and hard to light.
Got you.
That's the whole game, is to
Will
try to
not
get that powder to light. And
it will not ignite before it starts blowing powder out the barrel. That's when you need a Magnum primer.
So H110 is one of the more common ones that you run into with that. And it's a lot of people, if you cast, a lot of people at the 44, they go to like Elmer Keith type loads and all that standard pistol primer. No, not supposed to use magnums. I've switched back and forth to try to find more consistency, because sometimes I found, and this is really weird, where a load will be more consistent with a magnum primer than it will with a standard, even though it's not a magnum load. And I found it the other way around, where a magnum load is more consistent with a standard primer than so it's
right.
It can go a lot of different ways. Now, I those really hard to light powders, though, I stick with magnum primers for those.
Cool. You know, I also had another thing I want to ask or say. I seen a video where someone was using, I think it was in a it was in a crunch or whatever. So they were using small rifle in place of small pistol. And
Oh, hell no.
I've seen that video, and you know, I've seen a few videos on it, and I'm like, well, what the, you know, me, I'm not gonna try nothing like that because I'm still a new guy.
No,
5
man.
years from now,
There's
I would never try that. But he was using it in the place of a different one, I guess, to test, like an experiment, and it worked. And I'm just like, that's a little risky, I think, but that's just my opinion on that.
Well, Cletus brought this up, and it's one of those things, like I tend to not talk about things that are questionable, but some primer manufacturers, it has been said that their Magnum pistol primers and their rifle primers are the same primers in a different box.
Okay.
Test to figure that out on your own if you feel that you feel the necessity to do that. I don't. The primers, the cost is the same as long as the availability is the same.
Right.
I don't, but I have heard that as well. That some primer and this isn't all primer manufacturers, but some primer manufacturers, their Magnum small pistol is going to be the same as their small rifle or whatever it is. It's just,
well, that kind of makes sense for what I was going to say. You know, Lee Loadmaster gives you this blast shield. If you're not going to use CCI primers, install this blast shield. And I'm like, what the hell was that for? And you push the handle down and bam, goes off. Oh, okay. Well, that was a small pistol Winchester that went off. And I was loading 223, and the small rifle went off. And I was like, holy shit, I can't hear anything.
Big difference.
Yeah. So as far as the Magnum to the regular, I don't know. But the rifle to the the small rifle to the small pistol, there is an extreme difference.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also, like Uncle Jim said, the primer cup thickness might be different.
Right, I see that on the side.
Well, that's why they tell you that, because the CCIs have the, I guess, thicker cups or whatever, and Winchesters and okay.
Yeah, I think.
What they
Well,
had,
Federal,
that's what I'm using, and yeah, it scared the hell out of me when it went off.
that's one thing to look out for if you're new to this. It used to be that the warning was only for Federal primers, because Federal primers are the softest or the thinnest, I don't know which it is, cup out there. So they are the easiest to ignite by strike. In fact, my 32 H&R mag often will puncture Federal primers if I use Federal primers in it.
Damn.
So
yeah, hole right through it.
That's one of the things to keep in mind if you're going to go into especially a progressive type setup or something where you don't have the feel for your primers. Try to probably go away from Federal just because they're good. I love them. Federal match primers are some of the most consistent primers I've ever found. But yeah,
but they're thin. Yeah,
they may pop on you.
So I bought these
with Loadmaster. Oh, I'm sorry.
I bought these not too.
That's the problem with Loadmaster, is it primes on the upstroke of the ram. You're not seating it like you are on a Dillon. I know Chico's familiar with the seating it.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
yeah, the Lee Loadmaster is totally weird because you're pushing that thing down. You're performing 5 or 6 jobs at a time, or 5. And one of them is maybe blowing your face off. So you're kind of you're kind of scary about that, because I think I've had 2 go off.
Jamie, did you get those Cellar and Bellets from Cabela's?
I did. They were like $22 for a box of 1,000, and right here on the edge is four boxes. But when you look on the front of the box, it says primers, and it says for rifle, pistol, or revolver cartridge. I'm like, I don't think so.
Yep.
So to these guys, I guess a primer is a primer is a primer. I don't know.
Yeah, that to me is a very Richard Lee method of dealing with that. Is like, hey, it sets it off. Don't worry about it.
You don't like Richard much, do you, man?
No, I do. It's just it's interesting because a lot of reloaders, and me included, have a tendency to try to get so Nat's ass with every component, every measurement. I mean, I'm hand weighing every cartridge. I'm doing all this stuff, and Lee comes in with a sledgehammer. And you know, that's just his methodology. He's like, look, it doesn't matter. And most of the time he's right. Like, he's got the years of experience that I certainly don't have that many years of experience. So when he comes in and he tells you, like, you know, it doesn't matter. A lot of times he's right, even though I tend to think sometimes he's right for the wrong reasons. But so it's not that I'm against him at all. I think Richard Lee's pretty amazing dude. He's pretty innovative, especially when you're looking at the reloading world. He's innovative, but he kind of tends to use a hammer for a lot of tools.
Not the hammer.
And that's what I mean. Like, for instance, like for him, it's like a lot of times his cast loads in the past were always the same as his jacketed loads. It doesn't make a difference to him. Oh, man, yeah, it kind of does. Like, you know, but it technically doesn't. Like, if it doesn't lead, then it shoots.
Did y'all just see Scotsman's question?
I did.
Case preparation options and go.
Opinion.
I'm going to go fix me a plate of food.
Your fingers.
One thing I want to say about these is they're made in Czech Republic. And I can't say that name correctly. I can say it like a redneck says it.
That's how I say it. Czech Republic.
No,
Cellar and below.
Cellier and below.
Yeah.
That sounds French, not Czech.
Yeah, in which case I think Czech would be more Russian, so you got to put some K's in there for no reason. I think that's close. If there's any Russian people that are probably pissed at me now.
Hey, you let me do this.
Well,
I'm gonna let you.
I got this thing with I do a lot of Bible study and I like Hebrew, but Georgia boy's going to get mad at me, but they sound like they're clearing their throat a lot. I mean,
So, case prep stations, man. I've never had one. I've used my fingers my whole life.
Look at this shit.
I just look at this. I can't imagine. Here's my problem with the case preps. They're getting better, but when I first looked at case prep stations, they were $300. And Kyle is also an opera singer. Who knew? So we know who sings in the shower, don't we? Out of this crew,
it's still early.
Yeah, it's still early, but yeah. So I've never had one because I never could. To me, I just couldn't justify the expenditure because I thought they were way too expensive for what they were. Especially if you tear one open and you look at what it is, you're like, come on. But the prices have dropped recently, and by looks, I tend to like the Lyman one. But you guys know I tend to be more Lyman oriented. So Vanessa, you're in. You can just walk down the street and get it. But I don't know. I like anything that has interchangeable. Like, don't get something that gets the Frankfurt Arsenal because it's got the trimmer. Boom. That's it.
Jim, what are you LOLing Kyle for? What I do?
If you were singing, you slap.
Hey man, check it out.
Singing for your supper.
I've got dinner. Oh no, not the stringy snow peas.
So let me ask the question, Nathan. Normally the case prep station is normally going to be for a rifle, correct?
Well, it depends, man, because like you typically, like a lot of people think of rifle for that, right?
Right, that's what I'm thinking.
Right, because you got to trim.
Yes.
So that's where you're going to need to chamfer and trim and all that stuff. But I know a lot of people say you don't need to trim revolver brass or handgun brass, but that's not always true.
It depends on the caliber.
For instance, my 32 mags that I just loaded up, I had to trim every one of them. So it depends. Like sometimes you're going to have to trim. So it can go both ways.
Based on caliber.
Based on caliber, based on your gun, based on your chamber. Because that's one of the other things. If you have a chamber, and this is where the 32 mag, this is why this happens to it. The chambers on my 32 mag are relatively big. If you go to my dad's, they're really tight. But the problem is that Lee, or not just Lee, the Hornady does this as well. The sizing die oversizes the brass, so that you're actually
makes it longer.
Yep. So you're actually stretching the brass from the process of sizing it, and that's what ends up causing it.
I've read that somewhere. I was reading in one of my manuals. It might have been the Richard Lee manual. And I believe I came across that somewhere. So interesting.
Yeah. So interesting. You need to be able to do both in case you have to. Daryl Guyton, Guyton. He's a ton of guy. Daryl, thanks for coming out, buddy. I haven't seen you before. Oh, give a quick shout out here. Got Georgia Boy 44 on here. He says he's having a honey of a storm up in North Georgia.
Must be nice. Send me some rain. Put it in a UPS flat rate box.
Kyle seems to be, he'll sing for his food, but he will not dance for the rain. Vanessa Kitty out there in force. I know she's another person that's close to the Lyman. Fuzzy Fork 8. And Willie Bulletman, Mike Treen, glad to see you, brother. Big Al, glad you're here. Uncle Jim, the trimmer on a Lyman. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing I like about the Lyman is you can interchange those things with some of the Lee stuff. Who else we got out here? Crazy Scotsman, Cranky Cletus. I think you're staying pretty dry in Jersey right now, but I got some folks, a lot of family in Delaware, and right leading up to this storm, they were having such heavy rain that they had flooding all throughout the town, and the storm hadn't hit. I was worried the storm was going to go up there because it would have just destroyed them. They were already up to their ankles in rain. So I hope things are going well in Jersey as well as they can. Who else we got?
Me and Full Ed Taco were talking about it earlier, and he's like, "Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, we got fires and stuff over here. We could really use the wet stuff. You could use the wet stuff. Georgia boy, who doesn't live that far from you, is worried about the wet stuff. What are we gonna do?"
Well, Daryl, you said you've been here a few times. Sorry, I haven't noticed you, brother. I do appreciate you coming out. If you got any questions or anything, just hit us up here in the chat, or we can even send us a message or something on Slack later on if you need to. Eli Whitney, says Vanessa. Sam Cole made everyone equal. Well, that's unless you don't have any hands.
What the hell's the cotton gin got to do with anything, Vanessa?
He made revolvers.
I'm just going with what they teach you in school.
Yeah, but he made revolvers as well.
I'm familiar. Wow, that's hot. Woo.
Big Al says he's in the market for a complete 300 blackout upper for his Colt 6920 16-inch and suggestions. I don't have any. I don't have any suggestions. I'm also on the lookout for some AR type parts.
Temperature.
I think Jamie has bought some. Uncle Jim is like the resident expert on 300 blackout and stuff for us. I think. I'm sure there's other people that know, a hell of a lot about it. I just don't. I know some of the sites that I look at, and Palmetto Arms. They're the Reloaders Network. I don't think sponsor, but they're on there. You can get, that helps us out or helps Bacon out. So give them a look.
Your boy. Hey man, how you doing?
One I will suggest is Joe Bob Outfitters. I bought some stuff from them, and I know y'all thinking that Hick Georgia boy, yeah, he'd buy something from somebody named Joe Bob Outfitters. But, yeah, they do well with their prices. They sell pretty good stuff too. I like Trinity Force stuff because I can actually afford it. And then they had a sale on Arrow. Is that right? Aero. Arrow.
Arrow Precision.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They had a good sale on that stuff this past week. Classic Firearms always runs specials on barrels. AR, they always got 300 blackout barrels for sale if you're not afraid to put one together. I've done it. How hard can it be? I mean, right, Chico?
That's correct. You can do anything you put your mind to. That's even you guys out in the side chat.
Go ahead, Chico. I'm eating.
He said, Big Al has a question. He said, what do you think about the 16 for the blackout, the 16-inch barrel for the blackout?
Don't have one. Hard to say, man.
Yeah, I don't have a blackout either, but a lot of people been, even a lot of guys at my local gun shops, they was like, man, you don't have a blackout? I was like, no, I don't want to trim any brass. Because I hear and I researched that you can take your 223 brass or your 556 and trim it down, and you got your 300 blackout brass. But I'm still enjoying my pistol run right now.
What it boils down to is it depends on what you want to do with your 300 blackout.
All right.
Are you shooting a subsonic, supersonic? What weight bullet are you shooting?
You've got a blackout?
The 300 blackout's an open book of questions.
Yeah, and you know what, I want to say one more thing. Since we were talking about primers, I'm looking in this Richard Lee's book, and Nathan was talking about the federal primers. So I guess Richard Lee says, don't assume federal primers are the best because of the explosive power. So he's saying they're like high octane fuel, and but he did say that they were sensitive. So Nathan actually knows. You guys need to listen to him. But I've actually heard that, I buy a lot of federal stuff, ammunition and stuff like that. So when I was at a shop buying primers, I was like, let me get them federal. And then something popped in my head, was like, hold up, you read somewhere that you're not supposed to be messing with federals. So I was like, hold up, give me the CCI, So we backtrack. I did try Winchester, only one box, because I was trying to support my local, gun supplier, but I'm always looking for the deals on my reload and stuff. So I try to buy in bulk and buy from big box places because the price is a little bit better.
I got real lucky. I don't know, a couple months ago, I went to Columbus for a conference that I didn't want to go to, and I stopped by a gun shop in there because they got some really nice gun shops around Columbus, and they were having a sale where they were selling out all of the reloading stuff. Now, it had already been pretty much clean, but there was a bunch of primers in there, and I was able to get a case of primers. I wasn't expecting it. Otherwise, I would have brought more money. But, yeah, so I ended up being able to luckily get a case of – I don't remember what it was. I got a case of primers for, like, really, really, really good deal.
Is that 5,000 or 10,000?
I think it was 10. I split it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. It was 10 boxes, I think is what it was.
Oh, yeah.
I'll split one with you.
Yeah, I split it with my dad. I think it was my dad. I gave him like half of them. But yeah, so you can find good deals every once in a while if you're lucky. But yeah, I actually don't hesitate to use Federals. I'll use them. I'll even use them in my AP press. But I know what I'm dealing with, and I'm careful. Like, I'm like, okay, just be a little bit more careful with it. Make sure, and here's the thing I would say: if you're loading with, specifically, I know the Hornady, and you're loading Federal primers, be meticulous with cleaning your press, because what could set that primer off more often than not, it's not the pressure you're using; it's shit on the plunger. So you'll get a tick turd on the plunger, and when you push it up, it acts basically just as a hammer, and it'll pop a primer.
Wow.
That's more often the case than the other. So the problem with some of this is when you have a primer, like with the Hornady, the way the shuttle works, if that primer goes off when you go to, it's fine, it's one primer. But some of those others, that primer is so close to that tube, you run the risk of setting it off and it back chaining and blowing the whole tube up. That's when I wouldn't use a Federal.
Yeah, and you know what? It's crazy that you said that, because also right on this next page of Richard Lee's manual, he says in bold, he says never use a primer feeder that feeds from a tube. And to me, I've loaded by not using this tube. I'm placing one primer. That's when I first got it. I was doing one primer at a time, just making sure I was working this right, taking my time. And it kind of sucks because a progressive press, most of them are going to have, or all of them are going to have a primer feeder tube. But he says the same thing. Basically, if you got all your primers stacked up and one goes off, it's like a chain reaction. Yeah. So all of them are going to pop, so.
It can, depending on the design. Like the way that the Hornady works, what it does is the shuttle picks up the primer and then pushes that single primer away from the tube a considerable distance. I want to say it's probably about 1.5 inches, 2 inches.
Gotcha.
Before you actually start to push on the ram to move that primer. So it's considerably far away. Now, I think the way that the Redding works and like and some of the other ones is that shuttle is really close, or they'll have some of the old ones, which are hand primers that have a tube, right? And they're right on top of
each other.
Of each other. Now, if you look at like my Lyman setup, you have this for the T-Mag, you have this arm that comes in, picks up a primer, and shuttles it away. So while they're in a tube, you're not doing any kind of action that's going to set that primer off. So it's not a big deal. That's why I think some of that, warning, never use a tube feeder. It's like, well, you can feed out of a tube. You just don't want to go pushing the press in a situation where it's going to set the tube off.
Right.
And the Federals are, if you're going to be in that situation, don't
use the Federals.
Yeah. And I know, Dylan loads away from the tube is what I figured. Is what Uncle Jim said. So you're good.
Yes, yeah.
You might pop one, but it's probably not going to be much of a circumstance. you know, because you're putting the primer in before you're putting your powder in. Now, if you were putting your
Right.
primer in last, don't know how you would do that, but if you did,
Right.
that might be kind of stupid.
And you know, with me, I guess learning my machine, probably just like anybody out there, I can feel if it feels different than I'm used to, I stop and I look at something. So sometimes I've gotten a primer that started starting to cock, and what I'll do is I'll take it out and I'll pull it out and just set it back on there. So I am cautious always. You know what I mean? If something doesn't feel right, I stop everything.
Yeah, that's the key when you're using a progressive press is you have to understand that feel. Something doesn't feel right, stop.
Yeah.
And then the thing that I've noticed with a lot of people, and this includes me, if something doesn't feel right and you stop, it's like clean the whole carousel out. Because, you know, trying to figure out, because you're like, oh, okay, and you take this out and you fix that, and then you run it. It's like, wait a minute.
Where was I at?
Yeah, where was I at? Am I double charging that?
Right.
Clear the whole carousel, start over again. That's until you get the feel for it. And I think you've been probably reloading long enough now that you got that figured out where if you do have something, you can just kind of make a snap change and then go back to work.
But interesting enough, I did notice because when I first started, I was using strictly CCI primers. And then when I bought this at the local gun store where I bought this reloading manual from, they're a small gun store. They do a lot of black powder. And I can tell a difference in the feel of these Winchester versus the CCI. So that may be something that may help somebody or not.
That's extraordinary. Yes, absolutely. There's another primer thing. Guys, if you're shooting something and you're feeling like you have loose primer pockets, and that happens, try different primers.
Yeah.
Because there's the primer cup thickness. It's not just the thickness; it's also the ability to be able to hold whatever size they are. So if you're using a Federal or a Winchester or something that's, you know, well, a Federal particularly, it's pretty soft, but some of the other ones that are a little bit more soft, it may not be holding in that primer pocket very well, and just changing to CCIs can fix that.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, and I don't typically think about that kind of stuff too much. I mean, because I don't have that problem very often. But then again, I'm not doing a lot of my rifles just kind of, you know, they only get used once or twice a year. If I was doing full on rifle stuff, I think I'd run into it a lot more often.
I think you and me need to get together and shoot more.
Yeah, I know, man. I know. I need to go shoot more. Period.
So, Chico, were you referring to the feel of the different primers when you're seating the primer in the case?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, because just like Kyle said on the Dillon, I don't know if y'all can see me, but on the Dillon, you seat the primer on the forward stroke. Everything else is back this way, right? So whenever you come back down to your neutral, you seat the primer, and it took me a long time. I spilled a lot of powder when I got this machine because I wasn't. I mean, it was probably like every five, I was spilling powder. I was cleaning out my shell plate. So you seat the primer on the forward stroke, and when I was using the CCI, I guess I was just used to how it felt. And when I bought these Winchesters, it felt different because I went through, I don't know, 800 primers of CCI. And then I bought one box of Winchester primers. So, you know, I like to try different stuff because I read somewhere else and research, they said, you know, I guess your primers can have a difference on your velocity, just like some load data says we tested this with this case, this barrel, this primer. So
it's weird. You can actually really feel it on a Dillon because you go seat the primer and then, you know, seat the primer and then
right.
you change primers and it's like
seat the primer.
Yeah, it is different. It is different. So
I do understand the struggle, sir.
Insight, glad to see you, brother. Glad you can make it.
Hey, Scott's here. Hey, Scott.
We've it is funny when you're dealing with, like, because my Hornet is also a forward seating, but the way that it works, there's very little feel to it. It can be a little touchy as far as just feel. It's like I think I moved forward past center here a little bit. It's like, okay, it's not moving anymore. You know what I mean? It's kind of soggy feeling. It doesn't give a good feel like some of the other presses I've had before. But yeah, it is interesting how there's differences between the primers and, of course, with the presses for sure.
Did y'all see KFW's video this week about the Frankfurt Arsenal hand primer?
No, I did not, but I will.
That's the one I use. If I can find it.
It's a tube fed, isn't it?
No.
Okay, then maybe it used to be or something. I'm thinking.
I've got it around here somewhere. Like I said, I'm in various stages of reorganization.
In other words, he's got a damn mess.
Don't we all?
Well, if it makes you feel better, Jamie, I'm in various stages of reorganization as well. Here, I'll reorganize this toilet paper because my nose hadn't quit running in 3 damn months. What the hell?
And you know, guys, I'm sure there's others out there, but all I've seen that I can recall is CCI. I'm talking about primers. I'm sorry. Only brands I've seen is CCI, Federal, Winchester. The one that Jamie just had, I saw that one, and I believe I've seen one more.
Remington.
Yes, Remington. So I wanted to ask about them because I haven't looked into them much, and I don't see them at the big box stores where I go.
I have heard that Remington makes some primers specifically for certain loads that can bring them to life. I have not experienced it. I've never bought them because they're like $45 for a box of 1,000. I'm just not going to do that. So
I use Remingtons a lot, and I've been lucky.
Oh, rich guy.
No, sir. I've got them on sale. I've used Remingtons quite a bit. I got there was a midway sale not too long ago. I think it was like $25, $27 maybe a box, something like that. And I got a fair amount of them.
Well, they make their own. I think one of them is like a 5.56 specific primer.
CCI does that as well, but the Remingtons, I've had really good luck with them.
Okay, well, the ones I saw were like $46, $48 a box.
Some of those weird boxes can be. I've seen that before too, Kyle, where like some of those like 5.56 or 2.23 or whatever.
Yeah, I was good with CCI. It seems to work pretty good. So
yeah, I've used Remington small pistol primers, large pistol primers. I've used some in rifles, but I wasn't doing enough comparison to tell you a difference. As far as handguns go, I've noticed a more consistency in my 45 ACP using Remington small pistol primers. But I haven't noticed a difference in my 357. That seems to be about the same as it always has been. So I may have been just slightly not getting full ignition on my 45 ACP, and the Remingtons just helped me get to a more full, complete ignition.
Yeah, that's weird. I've been a CCI fan the whole time. On some of the Winchesters, on the 9mm and stuff, it's like, what do you mean it was low? It was the same round as the one before it, you know. And you shoot them through a chronograph. If you don't shoot your chronograph, link to video in the description below.
I avoid Remington primers like the plague, Chico.
You avoid them, okay. Hey, you know what? If I can, I want to answer a question that's in the side chat. I'm not sure who this is. I heard you guys mention him earlier. It says Gun Loving Grandpa Stanley. He says he doesn't know much about reloading. Where's a good place to start at? So I like to say, from my opinion,
the reloading bench.
Yeah, I'm a new reloader, right? So
that's the best place to start reloading is on the bench.
There's plenty of sources that I learned from, but I just watched a lot of videos first to see if that was something I want to be involved in. But like, I don't know if you guys heard me, I started researching and buying manuals like 2 years ago. So right. I'm still new. I'm still cautious. If that's something you want to get into, The Reloaders Network is a great place to go.
It all depends on what you're looking at reloading.
Right. That's another great point.
If you're going to be reloading precision rifle rounds, you can go this way. If you're looking at planking pistol rounds, you can go this way. I mean, that's a very open-ended question.
Well, I got my feelings on it, and at first is you got to know if you have the temperament to do it.
Right.
Are you
it takes a little.
Are you somebody who will listen to other people or listen to what the book tells you, or do you just be like, oh, I know better and I'm going to go? Because if you are, you probably don't have the temperament for it. If you do,
that's when you blow your face off.
Yeah, and if you think it's something you're going to be into, start off small. Start off with one caliber.
Give me one second, guys.
Even if you're going to go with big equipment, start off with one caliber, something to learn, so that you can get a feel for what you're doing. You found it
upside down. There you go.
It's a nice case.
It is, and it works really well. Basically, it has a very lead looking thing, and you just slide the top off like that, and you dump them and shake them. It has the little pins and that little rough texture, so they all turn up right. And it's got a table that tells you which shell holder goes with which cartridge, which is important or something. And then there's what it looks like. And then this goes in there like this, facing away from you always. And it does both large and small primers, of course. So one thing that I like about this thing, and I don't know that it makes any difference at all, but there's a little screw right there, a little thumb screw that you can adjust the seating depth of the primer in the case. I just turn it all the way in because I want my primer seated all the way to the bottom of the case. In other words, I don't want the hammer hitting the primer, firing pin hitting the primer, and then that primer slipping a little bit going on down in there before it ignites. So you guys are just looking at TV. Come on.
So
looking at TV.
So yeah, buddy, when you're talking about the place to start, I mean, the place to start is knowing that's something that you're interested in doing. I'm a big believer in books. The YouTube's great. Just recognize that you're dealing with people, not professionals usually.
Yeah, you can't. The data is always going to be. I'm the same way. I like books. You know, I know one time before we were talking about the electronic load data manuals. I don't care for them because I'd always rather have a hard copy where I can always reference it, especially if if we don't have any power, So.
Yeah, that's I agree with you, man. Books to me are one of the things I loved, and it was Fuzzy Fork 8 did a video. He's done 2 of them now, where he goes over some old pictures of some of his old reloading setups, and his initial reloading bench is like a block of wood with a press on it and a bookshelf. And all the important things taken care of. I've got my reloading data and my press. Everything else is ancillary. Like, everything else you can pretty well do away with. I mean, hell, you can even do away with the press and go with reloaders. I don't recommend it, but you could. So, look, I'm a big believer in if you're somebody who's got interest. I started off with the Lee Anniversary Kit. I think it's a good way to start. There's probably better ways to start now, especially with how the pricing is going with some of this Lyman stuff. But really, just talking with us, talk with other people, get on YouTube, read some books, man. It's a good, welcoming community. Vanessa asked about the priming tools. Vanessa, I don't have a good answer for you because I really like my hand primer, but it's a old Lee hand primer, and they haven't made it in so long. And the new Lee primers, hand primers, I looked at them and I didn't care much for them, so I can't really recommend. But if you can find a Circle Trade Lee hand primer on eBay, I really like mine. It's a very simple tool and it works. It doesn't have a lot of gadgets to get screwed up with. But it looks like the one Jamie had is pretty daggum nice. Daggum. Man. Jim Bob's Outfitters rolling up into General Lee. Daggummit. Never mind. Sorry. Having them the Lee Ram Prime. I think, is that the one that goes in the press? I think that was my first priming setup, was a Lee Ram Prime. Or if it's the one, there's also the one that they have now that's like a bench prime. The first one I had was a Lee Ram Prime. I think it screws right into the press. Still got it. Works like a champ. My dad, came over. This is a funny story. My dad came over one night when I was reloading, and I was priming, and he looked at me. He's like, "I have never seen anyone in my life do that way." And I'm like, "What?" And what I was doing was I had set up my Ram Prime and everything so that the very bottom of my stroke was perfectly touched, right? I mean, everything was perfect, but it was at the bottom. I couldn't go any further. Wasn't doing it by feel, nothing. I had it all set up to where it's like, why the hell did you do that way? I'm like, consistency. So he made fun of me for a while for that.
No, that makes complete sense. I was reading that they were that you can oversee the primer, so that makes perfect sense. Like I said, I read a lot of the safety stuff twice or three times, so I definitely understand it. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I was the same way, man. I had I think of course the modern Lee Reloading by Lee was my first manual because it came with the kit. But I think I got a Lyman and a Hornady at pretty much at the exact same time, and I read all of them cover to cover type stuff until I got hammered at. But I had read a lot of that stuff before. I was lucky, and then my old man was a reloader,
right.
So I've been reloading off and on basically since I was like 12 or 13. So
way ahead of the curve, yes.
Yeah, I was dumb lucky to have that kind of resource. I know a lot of other people don't, and that's one of the reasons why I started my YouTube channel, was because I knew guys that wanted to get into reloading, don't like to look stupid in front of other people. Like I hate looking stupid in front of other people, so they don't like asking questions, and they don't have a mentor. So I figured, hey, I should start a YouTube channel. Maybe somebody will get be able to listen to the bullshit that I say and come up with learn a new trade, I don't know, or trick.
Tell Vanessa that she does not want one of these.
Vanessa Kitty's still out there. I didn't see her comment.
She left and then she came back, I think.
Oh yeah. I see her now.
I have not heard a lot of good things about the Lee priming.
Show it again, Jamie. Hold it up and talk so they can see it again.
This is the one that goes on the turret press like this. Now, Georgia Boy has good luck with his, and he tells me if I loosen this bolt right here and adjust it, I can get it to where it'll go right in there. I've done that, and I got it to where it was going on there good, and I thought, yeah, I got it right now. So I push this little button and go up there and can y'all see that? Push that little sucker in there, and the very first one falls on the floor, and I'm like, ah! So I have this. It works. Works good, lasts a long time. Frankfurt Arsenal, less than $30. I'm thinking about buying another one so I don't have to change out from small to large. But I really like that hand primer.
I've heard a lot of good things about that Frankfurt Arsenal hand primer as well. I've had some people that tell me that they, depending on the iteration of the Lee priming tool, that it works as well. But then I've also heard that there's certain iterations, depending on this model at this time, that there was problems with them. I really don't know a ton about it because I haven't tried a lot of them. I had that first one that's old as dirt, and I've never had another one because it works all the time.
The round one that Curtis has seems to work really well. This one that I have, Georgia Boy is the only one I've seen that can use it and have some success with it. But what I've heard, and I don't know this is true, but I've heard that Lee has come out with a third edition of the what they call the safety prime that goes on the presses. This press mounted primer, and I'm thinking about ordering me one. Just call them up. You know, they got a nice little lady that'll answer the phone every time you call out there. So I might just call them up and ask them.
Absolutely. Mig, thanks for showing up, brother. Man, I've really we gotta get together. I gotta get some stuff done for you. You've done a lot of stuff for me in the past, and I've got to get some videos and stuff out about some of the stuff that we worked on together. Who else is it here? It says something about No Eagle. I guess Eagle Eye. He was one that was 300 blackout. He's another one he tried to get me to go 300 blackout with my 556. Okay, and we've got PC Bullet Empire / Duckleberry Finn / Duck Rogers. Yeah. So I appreciate you coming out, Tim. Somebody said we have a dislike. I don't see it on mine, but that's a badge of honor. I appreciate my dislikes.
Yeah, I seen it.
I'm all for it, man. Yeah, thank you very much. I do appreciate the interaction. Yeah, I don't know, man. Now when it comes to press priming, I've had really good luck with the Lyman setup. I've had good luck with the Lee setups. I have not the older, like the Lee Ram Prime. Even my now, the one thing I will say is my Lee Classic cast with the little flippity floppity thing. I don't have that set up to auto load a primer into it. So it doesn't technically work as an auto prime tool, but I can put a primer in there and prime with it, and it works fine. The only thing I don't like is when you deprime, because of the way that the Ram's built, it just dumps the spent primer out onto your floor half the time. Even though it's got this great tube set up, it doesn't use it half the time because the whole side of the Ram has to be cut out for the way the primer works. But my Lyman setup with the little it's an old setup, guys. If you have a new Lyman or an older Lyman press like the T-Mag 2, it's a very old setup for the priming, but it works all right for me, even though it's got those short tubes. Lusk laughed. Lusk's a bit of a laugher. He's also a bit of a singer. We found out, and there's egg rolls too. Duck Vader.
Egg rolls were good.
Egg rolls were good.
So look, here's a newbie question, and you guys know I'm not afraid of asking questions, no matter how it makes me look. So when I bought my press, you know, the primer system is part of the press, and it works awesome, I think, in my opinion. But I started to buy a hand primer, but because I load pistol rounds and because of the type of press, I would have to hand load every case, and you know, with the Dillon, you put it in a case tube, so
you're defeating your purpose.
Right. But I would assume if you're doing, let's say 50 or just doing some test loads, that's okay. But I still may buy one because I want to get in rifle soon. But I'm sorry, my question was, I went all the way around it. My question was, is a hand primer mainly just for rifle loads?
No, I use them for handgun all the time.
There's a lot of people that use it for everything.
Now,
I don't use it for – the only thing that I hand prime is what I load on my little 4-hole turret press. And here are some prime examples of that, which are loaded with the Shooter's World heavy pistol that hopefully I can go test fire tomorrow. I'm going to a buddy of mine's house, and I got, some loaded up here. I prime all of my, pretty much everything is primed on the press with its function, whether it be the Loadmaster or the Dillon, except for the oddball stuff like 35 Remington's one of them, 44 Magnum, 44 Special. That's pretty much what I use, other than just decapping. That's what I use this little Lee press for, and I just pick one up and put it in there and seat the primer. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
I let the press priming system do its job, and it works. It works a lot.
So here's why I use a hand primer for a lot of handguns. I deprime and clean my cases. So I'm already stepping outside the progressive type world because I'm not depriming, then sizing and seating a primer pretty much with one stroke. Because I already ran through, and a lot of times a lot of people don't do this, and I don't quite understand, but instead of using a universal deprimer or decapper, I'll use my sizer. They're like, oh, you don't want to get this stuff in your, but if it's a straight wall pistol case, you're using a carbide sizing ring, your guck is not going to be tougher than that carbide sizing ring. Right. If you're using a steel die, then yeah, because you'll scratch it. But anyway, so I digress, going all the way around it. So because I deprime, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll clean my cases and everything, and then I will drag that bucket of clean cases into the living room with me and just sit there and pet the dog and hand prime while I'm watching TV and stuff. So then when I go to load, all I got to do is expand, seat my bullet, or expand powder, seat my bullet. I'm done. So
I have a question about that. How long before you load them do you prime them?
Well, it's usually like the weekend of or before. I don't typically let stuff sit around with empty cases and primers in them. I don't think it's a problem. I mean, I guess you could run into corrosion, but the primers a lot of times are in the same case or the same environment as your cases are, because a lot of people say that they're supposed to keep their primers in a special kind of, but a lot of people don't. So I don't see there be a difference, but I typically end up only priming cases right before I'm going to use it. Undressing? What are you talking about, Mig? Who's undressing? Digressing. Undressing. Never mind. Okay, now I'm with it. I'm like, who the hell's undressing? Is Kyle stripping? I don't want to see that.
No.
Just his naked arm up there.
Not till later.
You know there's a farmer tan from way back going on with Kyle's arm too, right?
What?
I expected there to be like a demarcation line. Like where that t-shirt hits, it's like,
No, hell, brother, I work in a damn air-conditioned office.
Oh, that's right. You're in about the same situation I am.
Yep.
Daryl says he uses a Frankfurt Arsenal depriming tool. That way I'm not running dirty brass through my dies. Yeah, I mean, I understand it. I just haven't had too much. I started using a universal decapper. I think I bought a Hornady because of doing 308s. Because that universal decapper is pretty strong, and and if I break a pin, it's not a special order item, right? So that's why I started doing it for rifle. For handgun, because I'm using carbide sizing rings, I don't worry about it too much. But I can see, it being a consideration. Uncle Jim is already in his skibbies. That's entirely just wearing nothing but the Reloaders Network patch. It's a hell of a man. Keeping it together.
No, it's a hell of a woman that's married to him is what it is.
Absolutely. He can cook bread, though, man. He can make bread. You make up a lot of crazy with making bread. Like, I will put up with a ton of crazy for good bread.
And fried rice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Frankie says he stores his prime cases in plastic jars. the lids on them.
I've seen other people do that. I've seen people do it because you're supposed to keep technically. I think they say you're supposed to keep Shane would say you're supposed to keep your primers in a wooden box. I think, so that they don't blow up if they get hot. And that's actually the way mine are. Mine are in an old Winchester shotgun shell box. And I think I have like an old desiccant pack in there, but that's got to be saturated. If anything, that's probably a point of humidity in the box. But yeah, I've never had any. I've been really lucky though, guys. I'm trying to think of how many times I've pulled a trigger and on a dud, and it's been really damn rare on a round that I loaded. I mean, really rare. Well, and usually it's a misstrike, if anything. Like it's just something stupid where, yeah, I don't know.
Here I have a 44 Magnum and a 44 Special. Both of them are primed. And they've been sitting in that tray for a couple of weeks. I'm not scared of it at all. Good talk.
Yeah, good talk. Good talk, everybody. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was typing. Vanessa said something about making handmade bread and such. So I got jealous. And yeah. Primers and original packaging inside the wooden cabinet under my reloading bench. See, that's the same thing I've got. So I don't know a lot more other than what Armament Access has. But I've seen here's something I have seen. I have seen primed cases because you used to be able to buy cases primed in plastic bags that were years old, loaded up without any problems. So I don't know. I think that might be one of the things that there's not as much problems with it as we would be led to believe. Archery season's tomorrow in Missouri, I guess. That's cool. Guys, if anybody, we mentioned this at the beginning of the cast here, but it's been a while. If anybody has any shout outs they want to do to any of their friends that are dealing with this storm, just hit us up here in the chat box and we'll bring it up because our hearts and prayers are out there to the people that are dealing with this. Last I heard, they were saying something like 200,000 already without power. And it's probably going to be a long time before they're getting hooked up. So everybody's safe.
Right before we came on, I was watching the news, and it was 800,000.
Woof!
Wow!
And I have a friend who is a contractor, who his job is to keep the power lines clear of obstructions, and I'm pretty sure he'll be leaving out tonight or tomorrow.
What's weird is they were talking about the path of this storm, and they were saying it's going to hit here, and then first they were saying it's just going to go straight west, which would have impacted all of us, including you, Nathan. And then they said it's going to go to the southwest, which would eliminate you and me, Jamie, and leave Nathan in the middle of it. And now they're saying it's just going to pirouette a couple of times and then go northeast. Do they even know? I mean, the entire east coast of the United States is under a hurricane warning and a emergency situation and all that. And it was 93 degrees and sunny today. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I take that as in technology has progressed to the point where we're able to start talking about these things way further in the future than we used to, and I think sometimes it leads some people to think that they're getting poor information. Where it used to be, I don't remember hearing about hurricanes when I was a kid until they were a couple days out, like 2 days out. Nowadays, right. I mean, we're talking about hurricanes that are just like, oh, this is a tropical depression off the coast of Africa. It's going to destroy Miami next week. And you're like, what? Yeah. So I tend to think maybe we were talking about some of these things a little bit too early and leading people to get a little lackadaisical with it. But
not to downplay this storm. I mean, luckily it degraded before it got here because it could have been real bad. not to downplay this storm or anything, but you know, from where I'm sitting, because yesterday it was supposed to be landing in my lap, and I just don't know what I can do with all these hurricane conditions. You know, it's 92 degrees, sunny. You got like 10-mile-an-hour breeze. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, yeah. I see that, Vanessa.
I mean, it brought a bunch of humidity, but whatever. What did I miss from Vanessa?
Lucky I don't have a wrench.
Uh-oh. Got it.
I'm deleting them as fast as they're coming up that I can get to them anyway.
Fix that, Nathan.
Yeah, I'm working.
I got it.
No, I'm saying fix Vanessa not having a wrench.
Oh. Yeah,
or
no.
Me.
And Scotsman and Chico, and I can't
Yeah.
fix that.
Wait, and you know, it's crazy that y'all were talking about the weather people. You know, I've always heard it's like the weather men and women, they are like the only people that can lie and keep their job because they really don't. They really don't know. It's kind of like a calculated guess. So
they're
it
wrong
helps.
98% of the time and still get a pay raise. I mean, it's weird. I mean, here's the thing: stick your head out the door. Yeah, may rain, may not. Probably gonna be hot.
Yeah, that's man, I'll tell you, that's some common stuff right there with that whole with Georgia. 20% chance of rain every day. It's like, man, it's not even trying anymore.
It's a 20% chance of rain from April the 1st until October the 30th. No matter where you're at, it's a 20% chance of rain throughout the entire state. Who knows?
Yeah.
One thing that I'm upset about is none of it's landing in my yard.
Western Rockies Hunting says he needs some 270 reloads. You know, it's funny, man. You mentioned that. One of my favorite, scariest reloading stories ever was a guy that asked a new reloader to load him some 270s up, and then and he was using just whatever powder he found, which was some kind of Magnum primer or Magnum rifle powder. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, what are you doing there? And he's like, oh, powder's powder. I'm like, oh my god. Like, you give me those and let me dump that shit out before you blow your face off. Yeah, that's me, and I typically will not reload for people. Like, I as a rule, I just won't do it. Like, people are like, hey, can you load me up something? I'm like, nope. Now, like, some of you guys are stuff that understand. Like, if we're passing stuff back and forth, that's a different scenario. We all know what we're getting into. But man, you just never know, you know.
I load rounds for a gentleman who actually is my main lead source. That's kind of something that we worked out because he couldn't afford to shoot his 44 Magnum and 500 Magnum. And I said, if you can get me the wheel weights, I'll handle it. And he's been more than willing to keep my back porch covered in buckets. And I'll load him up some rounds and here, try these. Which ones do you like? Okay, here.
Smorgasbord, huh?
I'm telling you, Chico, come on over here. Let's cast some stuff up, man. I got plenty.
So you might be a reloader if you trade your services for lead, huh?
You might be a reloader if you got 12 5-gallon buckets full of wheel weights on your back porch.
Well, that guy that hopped on for a little bit, Julian, was he's one of the ones I'm trying to work out a deal pretty much of just like that. That I'm loading stuff for him and I'm getting lead showing up at the house because that's something that the old reloading press could definitely use.
And that's one thing we need to carry on with. Man, Chico come up with a brilliant idea today. You may be a reloader if.
Did you see it, Nathan?
No, I hadn't, but I will. I'll get to it.
We need to carry on with that.
Absolutely.
And you know what? I can't even take all the credit. So what happened? I just put a video out. I was bored at work. It was slow. And somebody said in the comments, and I forget, it may have been, I forget who it was, so forgive me. And if they're on here, comment. But they were like, we should use that as a series. I think it was Josh Benware channel. Or was it Cranky? Forgive me. I don't know who said. They was like,
it was probably either Josh, Cranky, or Mike Train.
That was me.
That's about the way that all them.
Oh
things.
yeah, it was Jamie. See, I'm sorry, Jamie.
It was Jamie.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Jamie. Yeah. So look, I was like, I had a lot of comments on the like 30-second video, but you know, it said you might be a reloader if, and you guys know you might be a redneck if, right? So, I've got some redneck cousins. Trust
what
me,
I like
man.
is
Look,
you all hiding down at work. You underneath a Crown Vic. You like you might be a reloader if.
But yeah, man, it's you know, it's interesting stuff when you think about it, because I was at work, I was on my lunch, and I was like, I was looking for some change, and I was like, look at all this brass I got in my door pocket, you know, in my change drawer. It's like, you might be a reloader if you got brass in your change drawer.
I got some you might be a reloader videos coming. And
so that'd be interesting,
funny.
though.
They're gonna be short, but they're gonna be funny.
It's funny. The other day, Kenny sends me an email on Slack saying, "How many boards across did you use when you built your bench?" And I'm like, "Oh my god, don't do what I did." I told him, I was like, "Man, I think I used 16 if I do the math right here." But like, I'm thinking,
don't do it.
My God, don't get into this. He said he's almost done with it. So he if he did, he's just a lot faster than I am. It's like, good grief, what a mess.
Chico Ozark had a good one.
I'm looking. Comments started coming up.
If unique works like Viagra. Yeah, you could like smelling salts, man. You could wake me up out of my sleep with a little unique just wafting under my nose.
Well, that obviously doesn't work for me because a bunch of y'all have pictures of me asleep.
Yeah. Well, unique is my powder of choice, so I can usually smell it out of I can pick that up real quick.
Man,
no, I haven't tried that yet, but it's like at least the 5th time I've heard that. I think I heard that on another chat, so I may have to try out some unique.
You need to try some unique, but then again, you don't shoot big bore handguns, right?
No, not shit.
It works to 9 mil. It works in everything.
Anything will work for 9 mil, but I mean, it's more catered to big bore handguns.
Yeah, I'd go with bullseye or something like that. Probably red dot.
Let me tell you, this stuff right here that Jamie dropped off at my house the other night.
I've got some of that, except I don't have heavy pistol. I got the.
Oh my God!
You like
God, it smells terrible.
It's an entire little can of butt.
Oh, geez. I mean, it's just brutal.
That's terrible, man. It's like,
I think there's probably going to be fun.
I love the smell of powder, man. I'm just like, when I ever crack open a new can of powder, I'm like, oh, that's the stuff. That's some you might be a reloader.
Me and Jamie and Angel had a nice conversation about what this smelled like. I'll let him tell you about it if he wants to.
I know when it. Have y'all noticed the difference when you shoot a gun? A traditional gun, like stuff you load, like 357 Magnum, my 35 Remington, that smell, as opposed to the smell you get with a 223, you're shooting out of your AR, particularly with factory loads, that ammonia smell. Have y'all noticed that?
I don't have one, so yeah. Well, I've got it, but I just haven't built the gun out of it yet. I've noticed different smells with different guns, but I've always attributed to the bullet. I don't know. My dad used to. Oh man, I like to use the oh, what the hell is that? Good grief! It tells you how long it's been since I've been traditional lubing. It's a Lyman, like it's the gray crap. It's a Molly lube is what I usually use, and it stinks to high heaven when you shoot that. I hated it.
The Emperor said he's noticed that ammonia smell. Smells like cat pee.
It smells like something. I can't put my finger on it.
Yeah, there's an ammonia smell to 223 burnt powder.
CFE? Is it?
I get the same thing with CFE 223 as well.
Let me grab my CFE pistol. I don't know.
Kenny says it smells like freedom. It's funny because
that freedom smell.
The last time I shot a 223 was when I was in the military, and I can't even remember what it smelled like. Isn't that terrible?
Well, this stuff right here must be high grade ammonia or aromatherapy.
Ammonia therapy.
That's what it smells like.
Ammonia therapy. Oh, that's great.
I was hoping somebody would pick up on that.
No, Vanessa, I've never smelled C4. Nope.
Oh, C4's cool. Point towards enemy. Wrap some deck cord around it and watch it go.
You know, not off the topic, but still on the topic. So, you know, when I bought my press, I was like, I'm good. I don't need any more presses. People was telling me I got a progressive press. I should have got a single stage press. I was like, I'm not buying any more presses. And because I'm gonna wander into casting, right? So I was like, oh, I went and bought another press.
Don't do it.
Just for sizing my bullets. I bought a what is that? The cheapest Lee they had. Right? What is that? The breech lock?
No. Yeah. Because
I didn't want to change out my tool head to slow down my production.
I've got that press over here, Chico.
Right, and that's just the basic cheapest press they had, and that's gonna be for sizing my bullets.
Yeah,
basically.
Well, let me go ahead and give you a word of advice, just from the get go. Get you one of the NOE sizing dies where you just change the bushing instead of buying a $20 Lee kit. Buy the $30 NOE thing and then just pay the $6 or $7 to $10 for every. I wish somebody would have told me this years ago.
What's the Cranky said? Get the T7. What's that?
Redding.
Yeah, that's a Redding press.
Man, yeah, Redding stuff. I looked at some of their dies and I was like, "Whoo, I thought Dylan was bad."
No, but seriously, for sizing.
So you don't think to get the Lee?
No. Hang on. Okay. This die right here. That one. You screw it in from the bottom. That's the piece that you change. And it's any size you want. I've got like 5 or 6 different inserts in there. You buy one die. If you don't have a Lee sizing kit to where
Mike Train said triple thumbs up on the NOE sizer.
Look, if you don't have one of these sizing kits that fit right on there,
right,
I'll give you one.
Okay.
All right.
Look, you can fit all that on there.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nathan.
I've got my own little bit of what I would say is bad news, but that press and sizing bullets, I don't. To me, they don't go together.
Which one? This little cheap one I just showed.
Yeah, it doesn't have enough advantage, mechanical advantage. So it'll be your bench better be mounted to the floor, like because you're gonna be surprised at how much force it takes to size bullets. Sometimes, not all the time. Some bullets is easier than others. Some of them you may only need to size 1,000ths off of. But if you start powder coating with a bullet, like let's say you're wanting to shoot a 30 cal bullet, if that bullet's dropping at 309 or 310, and then you're powder coating, you putting another 1,000ths or 2,000ths on it. When you go through that size, you're going to need a lot of force.
So it's got to have a bigger fulcrum or a bigger leverage, so some more leverage on it.
Yep.
I do it with that press, and you're right. It takes some force sometimes, but when I get a batch of really tough ones, what I'll do is spray the bullets down with case lube. They go right through there, no problem.
Yeah, they using some kind of lube on the helps for sure. I just ran into problems with like mine because that's how I was doing it. I was doing it with one of those small Lee presses, and I tore a chunk out of the bench. Yeah, I had a block that they were sitting on. It was sitting on a block on the bench, and it tore a chunk out of that block, and I had to replace it.
Now, what about that other press you had? You have a lineman press, or you used to have a lineman press that's about the same size. I was watching a video today. I commented on. I don't know if you've seen it, and you were sizing bullets.
Yeah,
you was using the lineman, not the lead. And the lead was right next to it.
Yeah, I've got a Lyman 4500 lubricizer. I still have that because I have to when I'm sizing bullets that require lube too.
Gas check.
Yeah, or gas check. If I'm gonna,
Yeah.
I don't feel like pan lubing, so I like the lubricizer. I've also got a Lyman, pardon the mess, but that single stage right there is the one that I use now for sizing bullets. I've also got a Lee classic cast single stage that I had from past, and I might use it from other stuff as well. But I would have went with the classic cast if I was going to go with a Lee single stage press because it just gives you that option. But
is that the one that looks like the? You know what? I'm gonna tell you. My reason was because of all the openness, because of the openness of the press. I was like, I can fit, even though I got small. I got these. Y'all ever seen that Burger King commercial? I got these small hands, so it really don't matter. But all of the open space compared to the one that looks, is it the Challenger? Single stage lead Challenger or something like this. Got it.
Challenger.
It's not hard for me to find deals.
The Challenger is like it's built the same way as that one. It is like cast aluminum, and it's a no frame. That one I think is just the Lee reloading press. I've got one just like it, and the classic cast is a cast iron O press, and it's not open. And there's the new Lyman. Ooh, that would be a cool option. The new Lyman C press.
The old press looks better.
Which one, Jamie?
Yeah, it's probably like $100, but it's a lot better looking press.
It is, but if you want that open arrangement, I'm thinking because you got the Lee one that he has there. The only other press I know of that's still in production that's just a C press is that new Lyman one, and it probably has the exact same mechanical advantages as their O press. I don't know.
All I was trying to do was, if he's getting into casting, I'll send him one of these.
I'm getting into casting.
Thanks
to Cletus and the rest of you guys.
Oh, I hear you. I've got I wish somebody would have told me this because I have 7 or 8 of these $20 Lee kits. Each one of them is $20, $25. So we're looking at however many dollars there. This die from NOE is cheap, and the inserts are $7 to $10 a piece. So I'll send you a bucket. I'm just trying to save you some money because you're gonna be casting for 9mm. What are you gonna be casting for?
I'm gonna be doing 9mm, 45. Is that what you're talking about, Nathan?
Yeah.
That's a nice looking little press
too. That just looks very similar to that Lee one to me.
It does.
I've not seen it in person. What you need is a longer handle and better leverage is what you need.
Yeah, that doesn't.
And you know what? I'm curious, and this is just an automotive person in me. That's what I do for a living. It looks like this Lyman press could have a longer handle. I mean, you could add a longer handle, right? Probably. Could I add a longer handle to this one? Nope, because it's look like it's riveted or something.
Yeah, it's cast. The handle's cast into the thing. So you could go. You could go to Inline Fabrication and buy a handle for it.
Yes.
Yes. You might be able to find an O press that's going to give you better ultimate versatility. I don't know, man. Is
that a Lee? The O press you're talking about?
You can get a Lee. I would recommend that classic cast one, the cast iron one.
Yeah.
Kyle, Uncle Jim's got a question and he's about to wet himself. He wants to know how much shipping is on one of those NOE inserts. If you bought one insert from NOE, what would the shipping run?
That I don't know. I ordered my 44 Magnum. The shipping wasn't terrible, but what I would do is figure out what the hell I was casting for, make my damn order, and order 6 or 7 of them at a time, because you can fit them in your pocket.
Well,
so they put them in the same box.
While we're on that subject, let's run down what when I was at your house Monday night. Talk to Uncle Jim about the size.
Let's talk about the size. Oh boy. Okay. All right. Here's what I don't understand. Like right here on this bushing, for the NOE sizing die, then there's no way that y'all are going to be able to see it. It says 430. That drops it at 431. On this sizing bushing, here's a 358. I don't know if you can see that. Not really waiting on you to be able to. It says 358. That drops it at 359. The other ones, one of them's in here. There's another one floating around here, another 44 mag.
So do you have any of
the other 44 mags in here? This says 432. Yeah, it drops it at 433. Why the hell can't they just why can't they stamp on the son of a bitch what it drops it to?
Because what it drops it to depends on what lead you're using, man.
No, it doesn't. It depends on the damn outer diameter.
Oh, it doesn't.
The inner diameter of that damn hole. That's
not when you're talking about 1,000s, Kyle. You know that. If you have harder lead, it's going to spring back different than softer lead with antimony and tin. There's variance,
this
man.
Fishing sinker that sacrificed its life to my barrel give me the proper dimensions.
I know what you're saying, man. I agree with you, but at the same time, you know, if you do an inside mic on those, they probably come out to the size that it says on the tool. You're just getting spring back, man.
Or Kyle, you can say it was made on Monday or Friday.
431 bullet. That's all I can say.
I'd rather drop 432 than 429 and not work in my damn gun because it's too small. Right. I'd rather be 1,000 over than 1,000 under. Freaking lineman. Now here's the classic cast. See, it's a pretty good size press, and you got a lot of a mechanical advantage with it. It's got a pretty long handle. Once you epoxy the ball on there, it works pretty well.
Epoxy the ball on there.
Yeah, but this thing is built, man. This is something I say about Lee. This thing is built all with steel, and none of it's like cast. Type pop metal. It's all steel and it's built really, really strong.
I'm taking y'all on a trip.
My Lyman O-Press, which is a crusher or orange crusher or whatever the hell they're gonna call it, it's built just as well. I like the way that it kind of some of the things about it I like it a little bit better than the Lee. That's why the Lee's off the bench and the Lyman is on. But it's purely up to you. Like for me, one of the things I really like about the Lyman is that my handle is cocked or is canted so that it's not kind of straight in the way and it doesn't hit me right as I'm trying to, because I reload sitting down.
Right, right.
So the canted handle works better. There's a couple other things, but.
Oh, no, I appreciate that. See, I'm glad I showed y'all that. You going back. It's going back.
Yeah, I would because honestly, it's just not enough press for that. And then when you go to try other things, if you're looking to get into rifle stuff,
yes,
and you're like, hey, I want to try to maybe you do get a 300 blackout and you trim your brass and you go to that press won't get the job done. So I would go with a pretty good size O press, either the Lee Classic Cast, the Lyman Crusher, whatever they're called, the new O press. Or whoever else. It doesn't matter. What a good size cast iron O press is going to do the job. Doesn't matter who the hell it is. It's just which ideas you like better. Troller.
Gotcha.
Where's this coming from?
What?
I'm getting a troll alert here.
Where's the troll? See, I'll fix that. You didn't give me a wrench. That's what happened.
Oh, let me talk to him first.
But I even see Georgia boy. He said, I read a lot of stuff about Lee stuff, and some of their stuff is good, but I've always heard NOE is better on certain stuff. So, see, these are seasoned guys. These are seasoned reloaders.
Well, I mean, what
That does
I'm
not
looking at
mean
is
old.
the Lee packages are $25 a pop, and the bushings for the NOE die are $7 to $10. So all you need is one, and I'll send you one.
Yeah.
Let's go eat some chili dogs. I'll bring you one.
Hey,
Chili dog. You want to go back to the varsity?
Hell yeah.
Go ahead,
That's good
Nathan. I'm
food
sorry.
with good friends, man.
I was just agreeing with chili dogs. I see what's going on. It's just being silly. I don't think it's actually somebody being a
Oh yeah, they're being crazy.
yeah, they're just being crazy.
Oh, I wanted to give the troll my phone number.
No. We got rid of that guy. Man, what is up? How can somebody be that bored?
Well, you know, they told me when I first started making videos, they said if you don't have one dislike or people trolling your page, you're not doing something right. So you have to change your style up, Chico. So I was like, okay, what can I do? Maybe to piss somebody off and just
Yeah.
I speak the truth. And it's
Yeah.
There you
Always run
are.
that risk, man. Always run that risk of pissing
I was
somebody
looking
off.
outside for you.
Now the good thing is, one of the things I would say about, and this goes to the Reloaders Network, in my opinion, we've had such a good group of guys. Even people that disagree about certain stuff, it's not that name calling, childish bullshit disagreeing. It's like, hey, no, I kind of see it this way, and they're like, oh, okay, cool. Nobody being a kid about anything. Everybody being really civil and decent, and
adults about it, right?
And this made the channel, that's made the Reloaders Network such a cool place to be. I remember way back when we were just starting out, we had some drama. But eventually, man, like those couple people that were causing it, some of them went away, some of them chilled out. It's been a cool place, man, and I really do appreciate the work that Bacon put in. I know he's not on the chat, and I'm not trying to kiss up or anything, but I mean, Bacon put in a lot of work to get that stuff happening. And
I didn't see him.
I hadn't seen him either.
No, I hadn't seen him either, but I'm just saying that, he's put in a lot of work, and I do appreciate it.
It's actually really awesome that there's actually a group of grown-ups that can talk about stuff. Everybody's got their own way of doing stuff. It works for you. It may not work for me. That's cool. I'll try it your way. It doesn't work for me. There you go. I mean, that done deal.
Yep. Nobody's too worried about, yeah, it is a nice type environment. It's one that I felt, because I was involved in, and I'm sure some of you other guys in other forums. Man, and I've said this before, and I hate to beat that dog. Those other forums were usually toxic. They were hard to deal with. They wanted to, I mean, they wanted, every time you asked a question, they were like, use the search function. I'm like, then kill the damn forum. It was
and what's the purpose of this?
Yeah, it was just, man, it was always, they were always so out against new reloaders, even though they said they weren't.
And where else?
Yeah, and
join the Duck Nation.
And now, man, the Reloaders Network is just such a nice environment, man, comparatively. So I'm definitely happy about what we got lucky enough to stumble into.
Yeah, I definitely agree with, man, because I understand that in the industry I'm in, being that I'm a mechanic, but being that I've been doing it since I was 7, watching my dad, I kind of knew a lot more than people expected me to know. So same thing whenever you work in a shop with a lot of older guys, and they're well seasoned, but way older, they kind of be hating, if y'all know what that means. So they hate to see a new guy in the shop, like when I was like 18, first starting off like 20 years ago, they were kind of hating real bad. And they was like, where'd he learn that from? But I haven't seen that in this reloading aspect of either on YouTube or the Reloaders Network. Like, everybody been supportive, and it's kind of almost like a lost art. It's not lost, but it's not as much talked about as you would see something else. So definitely been supportive from here and everywhere else on YouTube on my videos. I'm always happy about that. And guys, you know, offering help like Kyle and Jamie and a lot of other guys in the side chat. I'm not, you know what? I'm not gonna mention any more names that helped me because I always forget somebody. So, but yeah, these guys always definitely being supportive. And hey, if you need anything, you need some advice, I'm never afraid to ask for advice at all. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's I mean, I know I appreciate what everybody does, especially these guys that are able to be a little bit more active than some of us other guys. Yeah, I don't know, chat guys. Don't argue about nothing.
Yeah.
Anyway, oh guys, yeah, the Ducks. The Ducks are obviously, you know, being the Reloading Network mascot slash spirit animal. They are a huge draw for me as well. We are all ducked up, and we're ready to get ducking out to the shooting range, and at any time.
That's a definite. Mute real quick.
Hang on a minute.
What are you hanging on to?
Cranky Cletus. You shouldn't have had to do that. Those were already sized, man. Those were ready to go. But I guess that gets you one step closer to casting your own.
Duck riders in the sky. Oh man.
Yeah, this is getting comical.
Yeah,
guys,
actually,
my girlfriend's over here, and I kind of need to be getting back to that. So,
absolutely,
I'm gonna have to step off for a minute, or for a while, or for the evening, or for whatever.
Well, guys, it's actually. I mean, we're typically trying to stop at 9:30, and it's almost 10. So, we want to go, and I appreciate everybody coming out. We got MCK, Mike Force One, Ozark Spirit, Eagle Eye Shooting, Western Rockies Hunting, Uncle Jim, Eddie B, my fellow from Georgia. We've got to get you on here. Plus C4 8, Kenny from Eagle Eye. You know, man, I always appreciate you coming out. Cranky Cletus, my fellow brother from Jersey, even though I'm not from Jersey. Anyway.
Where the hell did that come from?
Man, never mind. Mike Train, yeah. Willie was out here for a while. We got the Duck Rogers, and all the other inclinations. Uncle Jim. Man, I'll tell you what, guys, before I get too far into this, Uncle Jim has been putting out just an absurd amount of videos. It's really awesome to see how entertaining he is and how consistently entertaining he is able to be on this. It's amazing to me. Like, it takes me days to think of some of the crap that I don't have time to even pull off. So Georgia Boy 44, that's our fellow North Georgia guy. He wasn't able to get on today, but hopefully we'll be here next week. And cheeky guys, everybody else. Vanessa and her muffins. That is something that needs to be made happen. Said something about, you know, they were talking about making muffins for everybody. You know, if you're going to bring something to class, you got to bring it up for everybody. But Armament Axis, dude, I appreciate you jumping on.
Muffins. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, she's baking bread and making muffins. The Armament Axis, I appreciate you jumping in to help moderate, man, because it's not always that I can catch it. Jamie usually does a better job than I do, but I appreciate it. So, guys, same old story, man. I'm gonna try to get some stuff out to you guys as soon as I can. I appreciate it, and want to go to the horn and say what's going on, and give our shout outs and prayers to the folks that are dealing with the storm.
Chico, you're up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure learning from new guys and seasoned guys. That doesn't mean old. But you guys always help me out. I appreciate the side chat, everybody out there. I'm not mentioning any names because I forget some. So, yeah, prayers out to everyone that may be affected by the storm. It's a lot of people on YouTube. So they will definitely be in my prayers.
Jamie, go ahead. Or you want me to?
You go ahead.
All right. Guys, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and spending a little time with us. I want to thank Chico for stopping in. And hopefully he's got his own chair on the panel. Hopefully we can make this a normal thing. And yeah, I feel real bad for people. I've seen a lot of videos and pictures and stuff that they're dealing with some water, and the problem is they're not done dealing with the water, and that's pretty bad. And well, actually, it's terrible, but it is what it is. So my prayers are out with them, and I want to thank everybody for being here tonight, and appreciate it. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay. Got a little bit occupied tonight. Sorry, guys. I've got load 6 of 35 Remington loaded up. This is with 48.95 compliments of Mr. Lust. We're going to be shooting 34 through 36 grains in half grain increments. We've got one, maybe 2 more powders of our preliminary. We think we're going up to 9. And after that, we'll be doing some fine tuning. But I've already got my favorite is picked out pretty much.
Yeah, you've already got a pretty damn good load. I don't even know if I'd continue on with different powders, man.
There's one in particular that I'm really liking, and it's one that I don't think anybody's seen coming. I want to. Yes, Georgia boy, it is. Pastor, let's keep everybody up there in our prayers. The last I heard, we've had 8 deaths in the hurricane so far. One in particular that touches my heart was a mother and a daughter. A tree fell on their house. Y'all be praying for those folks up there, not just them, but the first responders that are rescuers that are going in there too, and their families that are at home worried about them. It's just a tough thing. I feel like I need to address some stuff that was going on in the chat room tonight. We're always welcoming new people. Some people don't share our same. I don't know quite how to put it. Our same outlook on life. But we all started somewhere. If we're young and we want to learn, we need to welcome those folks. But at the same time, show up, look around, and see what's going on, and see what kind of moral standard is going on in the room, and we can move forward. I don't like putting anybody in timeout. I don't like taking down any comments, but tonight we had our first incident of something going on. I think that's probably a good sign, maybe not, but it's the fact that we're growing a little bit, which I'm proud of, and we've got these good people that are here every week that come share time with us, and we're blessed by having y'all. And I think each and every one of you, we've grown to know so many of y'all through this time that we spend together. It's a time of relaxing after a tough week of work and fellowship among like-minded people. And it's one of the highlights of my week. And I thank each and every one of y'all for coming and joining us. And I just, y'all all got a special place in my heart. And I appreciate the time that you spend with us.
Very well said, sir.
And with that, we'll let Mr. Nathan close us out of here.
Well, I got to follow that. That's a very eloquent hillbilly.
Is that what you call yourself?
That's what he's calling me, Kyle.
But guys, look, yes, Armin, you will eventually, we'll figure something out. But guys, I do appreciate everybody coming out. I know that it's a Friday night. Sometimes that makes it a little bit difficult, but it's the only time we can all get together. But it's like fellowship for me. I appreciate it. It's recharging. When you have a cruddy week at work, it's nice to come talk to all you guys. So I appreciate it. We'll be on same bad time, same bad channel next week. But until then, guys, I appreciate it. Have a good night, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Night, guys.